Right. Today, something about the X Project Intelligence section. It's quite a good idea, I thought, when I heard about it. Long time ago, mind. This was my dad's idea. Before I was even involved, I think probably late 80s, early 90s. Right, the reason why he set this up, as you know, I don't know whether you know or not, but my father was an British ambassador in quite a few different countries. And he obviously had to keep on top of what was going on in the country to do his job, basically. You know, it wasn't all pushing British companies and all that. It was a lot of other stuff that they don't tell you, you know. So yeah, so intelligence gathering was one of the things that, I wouldn't really call it intelligence, it's just sort of being on top of what's going on. Now then we get the era of misinformation, should I say. That's very good. I mean, we did it in the war by planting dead bodies at Calais with invasion plans on. You know, there's a lot of so the Germans thought we were coming in Calais. Things like that. So you never know what's right. Even today, you know, you go on the internet, you don't know what's right and what's wrong, do you? Nobody really seems to know anything, or what they're doing, or what anybody's doing, you know. The false fake news thing, the false flags, all sorts of things going on. So anyway, my dad cottoned on to this very early on. Not just him, a few other, quite a few other people too. And the Foreign Office didn't really want to know anything about it. They had their hands full anyway. And so he decided to do it himself, along with his other, well, the X Project itself. So he used people who were involved in that to say, who can we get to see what is right and what is wrong with the news, etc. So rather than recruit somebody and say, go out and see what you can find out, they went straight to the heart of the matter, i.e. the employees who work at the places. Now, it wasn't because the X Project is pro the planet and pro the human being, the free human being that is, not the communist one or the Nazi one, as some people seem to think, or the Chinese one for that matter, anything communist, you know, anything where people are under the thumb, generally because of money, which we've been saying all along should be got rid of. Anyway, there's plenty of, well, there's one main alternative which is sort of way ahead of all the other alternatives to money that people have thought up in the past. Very, very complicated, but it will work, especially with today's mobile phones and sophistication. So anyway, so what they, I mean, it was quite, because of this and what the X Project was doing, very easy to recruit people. You know, after half an hour of sitting there telling them about this, they said, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I'll do whatever I can. So it started off with all the news agencies, so they'd either get people recruited in via the job system, or they would get people already in there, which is very easy to find because they all go to the pub afterwards, especially on a Friday afternoon. You know, most of Fleet Street is in a pub. So they did that, and with their high up statuses, because he obviously recruited a few of the MPs that were knocking about, that looked as if they were doing nothing. And so that's what they did. I mean, the MPs can just call in a newspaper just like that. So once you've told them what you're doing, they feed you information. You have to tell them that the information only goes to the X Project Intelligence section. and isn't given to anyone else, doesn't ever leave there, but gets put into a pool where all the information can be put together to see what's really happening. And then that goes out to affiliated MPs and us 450 and odd knocking around. So we all know what's going on. Now this stretched to quite a few other places, like places that seem to know what's going on, like the intelligence agencies, for instance. I mean, I think before lockdown, the last meeting we had, there was probably in one particular agency, which I won't name, there was 6 individuals all feeding information. And because of the high up nature of these agencies, we could feed them information back when it had been processed by us. Now, we're not talking about processed by a computer, we're talking about processed people sitting around a table. You know, so you get the human element rather than the machine element. So in the end, I mean, I'm not absolutely sure what's going on now, but I'm sure they've got it all up. I'm supposed to be the spokesperson, so really I should know. But yeah, I'm assuming it's all still going on. So I do get the odd report, generally at a military show, verbally, so we don't so there's no paperwork to lose, etc. So really that's it. But it's come up with some, you know, things like, I don't know whether I should say this, the death of Diana, you know, pretty obvious, but we've sort of pieced together the full story, you know, right from front to back, and quite a few other sort of outstanding things, you know, that I've often wondered about. And I can even put in, can you see what happened here? And the intelligence, they put the keywords in, get all the printed matter off, or rather should I say what was scanned in as printed matter, and you know, you can know quite easily what's going on. And I'll give you an example. We're all thinking that MPs become an MP to go to Parliament and start their businesses, and they've got 5 years to do it, and get everything up and running and have second jobs, etc. Get as much money as possible, because they might be out in 5 years' time. So, and that's again a money problem, because they need to get the money in before they get thrown out, which could possibly be in 5 years. Then they'll be back to their council job or whatever it is. So there is this rush that the sort of England is sort of on the back burner. But what happens is, if you talk to an MP after he's just won an election for the first time, he says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get a bridge built, I'm going to get a bypass built here, I'm going to do, you know, and they go on the train or whatever, or by car or whatever, on their first day, walk in and say, yeah, I'm going to do this, I must go and see this person, and they're told to, no, you know, do this, this and this and this, get your business running, do this, because in 5 years' time you're going to be out. And there's so much red tape and rubbish involved in getting anything done in Parliament, that they end up not bothering, basically. So the whole thing is a money-based problem. Get your business running, as much money in as possible before the 5 years is up. Now, as we all know, I don't know whether I've done an instinct thing on the UFO section. One of the basic instincts is you always revert to yourself, no matter what else happens. You know, it's a survival thing. Say, for instance, you see 2 dogs, a small dog with some food and a big dog without. he'll say, thank you very much, I'll have that, even though he's his mate. You know, this goes right throughout the whole spectrum of animals and insects and everything. You know, it's a survival instinct. So they're there basically, and when it reverts, you know, you might say you're going to do this and do that and do that, but when the crunch comes, it reverts. And what's happened is, if you can imagine 1 billion minute decisions, and they're all very, very slightly the same as each other, but one benefits the decision maker just slightly more, they're going to pick that one, even though that one might be better. So millions and millions of decisions, so nobody really knows, you know, nobody could probably calculate those millions of decisions going in to what's shaping the path we're on. And obviously there's people sitting around desks in major businesses, especially in Argos, that they had specialists, you know, recruited especially for the job, people round tables deciding how they were going to up the profits all the time. And it didn't only include adding money to the goods, it included getting rid of staff. Like for instance, the company car was a big one. You know, the government had a go at that, and so did the company. In the end, you know, what used to be a nice perk became this tax burden. You know, it was just, you know, there's, from the 19 years I was in my company, we went from the directors all having fun and doing their job well and the business prospering, to it being a chore. There was no perks, there was nothing left, you know. And then in the government, when you hear about perks, everyone has a go at them because they took advantage of it. Yeah, so nothing works, basically. But all these small decisions all into one. Well, it's the same with the intelligence section. Many, many small snippets of information bring out one big conclusion. And that's what's happened. I mean, basically every government's the same. You know, when you elect somebody, they say they're going to do this and that and that and that, and in the end they can't, either because of money or somebody's stopped them. So the voter never gets, there's just no point voting. The voter never gets what they ask for. It's always just one big ship. You know, the voter says, oh, we need less tax. They look at the cash. Can't do less tax because this and this will have to go. You know, then we'll be the baddies. Then we'll just get voted out the next election. You know, it's all, the whole system is wrong, basically. But like I say, back to the intelligence section, it gives us the best of what we could possibly get. The only way it doesn't work is if everybody we've got the information from is lying. You know, if you get 10 people who say something did happen and one who said something didn't, we don't put it in the system. We find out later on, either via other means, or if that person suddenly says, oh well, actually yes it did, then it goes on our system. So we have to be probably 100%. You know, you can ask for down the percentages, down to 50%. You know, did 2 people say this happened and 2 people didn't? So, but then you can't really make a decision on that. Yeah. And this intelligence system was the way we found out about what was being sold to terrorists, or what the various people in Russia tried to sell to terrorists, and Ukraine and everywhere else. But you know, that was how my father got hold of that information. It was because lots of people thought what was happening, but when you added it all together, the percentage probability was that it was, and then you would send out somebody to look, and depending on where this information came from, usually that led straight to the people selling the stuff that terrorists could use, which in fact, because of my father and the X project, is why nobody's let off a nuclear weapon yet. No terrorists got hold of one. So that's why. All based from this intelligence. Basically, he would go round buying stuff that using money from his mates, i.e. some of the biggest financiers in the world. Even still today, they're still going. They don't get voted out. In fact, the only people that gets voted out are MPs, basically. Everyone else is still there. All the heads of the security agencies in the America, head of CIA, head of FBI, they don't get voted out. They've become their own law, almost, you know, which is what happens. I mean, it's another thing. It goes back to hundreds of thousands of years ago when we were in our village situations. You know, who could get power of the village? The strongest man, generally. You know, or one that was doing good. You know, but the village situation is one thing I'm going to touch on with how we should be operating at the moment. It's the only way, really. Things are getting too complicated now for the average human to even contemplate carrying on. You know, it's pretty bad. We've all got huge loans. Again, loan. You know, we've looked into that. What happens is people making decisions on finance. If something even if it's bad, if something slightly benefits them, they pick that decision and not that one, even though that one would have saved hundreds of people in Africa and this one wouldn't. You know, they call it business. Oh, you have to be ruthless in business. You know, millions of decisions like that are where we're at today. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And that's it. But they don't care because they know about overpopulation. So if we start dying, they wouldn't do a thing about it, basically. And they've already voiced that. You know, some of them have even made plans. So, and not only that, them financing us, or my father, to do what became this part of the X project, they wanted the codes so that they could do their own population reduction using what my dad had bought. So basically, you know, you've got to, I've got to be careful what I say. Let me think of this. Yeah, no, I've lost it. I can't say anymore. 18. So, how can I put it? Yeah, they wanted the power to do population reduction, whereas we wanted it in case any government got too out of hand. You know, like for instance, one thing that's almost triggering us into action is the climate change thing. They don't seem to be doing anything worthwhile, you know. And there's lots of other problems that don't seem to be getting done. As you say, as I said before, the rich are most certainly getting richer. Even though, you know, most people in England are not broke, but aren't spending what they were at the beginning of the lockdown, or before that even, in the 70s, you know, was the best time. But as people lost money and other spouses in the family had to go to work in order to keep the house running, uh, you know, to pay for things, basically. And that money ends up whoever gave the loans in the first place, or the credit cards or whatever. And as you know, the banks borrow from the central bank, and the central bank's funded by the top elites, the top financiers. And it all comes down to us, but eventually it all goes back to them with lots of interest. So the more we borrow, the more they get, basically. And with this new payday loans thing, at thousands of percent, and equity release is the new one, just their way of getting your house, basically, or some of it. So yeah, it's you know, I can't say what could happen, but there are, you know, there is a plan afoot, so nobody has to worry, because, you know, we do have some big clout that we can get our big stick out and stop these people, basically. But like I say, the first thing, you can't change anything without getting rid of money. So I don't know whether you saw the two videos on money alternative I did in one of the other sections, maybe XTV, I don't know. That basically tells you all the things you get rid of and how to cope with it without actually having cash or anything, not even a bank, you know. Like I say, Project X, the idea is to get to 100% unemployment, not 100% employment. 100% employment, all that does is feed the government and feed, which is, some say it's an okay thing, but have you seen what they're spending the money on? You know, and the elites, you know, 100% employment means it's 100% more money going to the top, or more money going to the top, not necessarily 100%. So, but yeah, the really bad jobs should be done by either robots or prisoners. All the jobs you get rid of, getting rid of money, you know, finance is like, there's literally billions of people involved just controlling the money, from the banker up to, you know, stockbroker, those people who deal in shares, etc. So yeah, you've got to get rid of that first, because it takes you down a wrong path. And like I said, the factory that has to keep producing in order to stay open, and then they get a salesman in to push, for instance, double glazing on you or whatever, you know, they have to keep selling. But in our system, if suddenly the order stops, the factory doesn't shut, it goes dormant for a day or two until somebody orders something. You know, there's no rates, there's no money for electricity, there's nothing like that, you know. But obviously there has to be a control system, but the control system isn't to do with money or tax, you know. Like, for instance, if suddenly got rid of money, the first thing I'd do is jump in the car, go down to the supermarket, get an armload of chocolate. You know, you won't be able to do that. I'm not saying it's going to be rationed, but bad food to good, what used to be expensive, there's a sliding scale. Does it become, after that scale, after that marker, it goes to the centre of excellence system. Otherwise, you can go to a shop and just pick one up. The person who put it in the shop gets to go to their centre, or closer to their centre of excellence. Again, there's no fixed, there's a sliding scale, because all the shopkeepers have provided all the people with all the stuff, then it goes to 100%. In other words, they can just pack their bag and go, either to, you know, their favourite hobby centre, which again will have its own hotel, and every single version or item that's in that hobby will be there, either in the museum or to use. So, you know, that's the centre of excellence system. So that's probably about it, is it? 25, yeah. So yeah, intelligence, I mean, you know, it's gathered from the root, not from what people are saying. So the actual person involved in that department is telling us. So we can't get it right, well, unless they're lying. But then again, we don't go by just what that one person said. We have to put that in like a holding area and then wait for someone else to say it too. And if 10 or 20 people say it the same, we're pretty much sure that that is true. So yeah, so that's it really. Project X Intelligence. Being the spokesperson, I'm not sort of, I don't get literally everything now that I'm supposed to. But the other three, if anything happens to me, there's somebody who will just walk straight in and knows exactly what I do. And there's two other people always behind being trained up. So there's four people who could be, two people who could be spokesperson immediately. That's me and this other chap. He's a reserve. And two others in the pipeline. So that's because some people, it's never happened to us because we don't do anything bad. But in other agencies and things, people have been knocked on the head because, you know, not very clever individuals have suddenly decided that they're the one that was the cause of the problem. I mean, I was just reading the other day, in football, poor chap who let in a goal was killed. Another one, the ball bounced off him and went in the goal. This only happens in foreign, where they're really passionate about football, foreign places. But yeah, he knocked the ball in the net and he was killed a few days later by three blokes. You know, that's the kind of stupidity that people think. So in other words, you might break a crumb off the biscuit, but it'll just regrow instantly. There's literally nothing anybody can do. All the members are numbered, except me, with a PX number. PX and then, I think it's a 6-figure number. So yeah, even the vehicles are numbered, the equipment's numbered, the places are numbered. Milton Keynes, I think that's 0063, I think. Not sure. Anyway, PX 0063, yeah. Buildings are 4-figure numbers. Right, thank you very much. And public people don't normally look at this, but I'll send this out as an email to all the. I've got enough to just say a quick. Yeah. If you start watching this, switch it off again. Log out until it says log in the top corner of YouTube, and then go back on, find it, and then watch it. Don't like or dislike or subscribe or anything like that, because if they suddenly decide, oh, nobody should know about this, you know, they can find you. That's the problem. Okay, because there are people, like I say, government's up here, agencies are down here. They don't get to know from us or from them. I'm down the bottom here somewhere, and I could easily fall foul of them. And it usually, there's a few days wait. Somebody from here tells them, and then they suddenly say, right, off you go. You see what I mean? So it's very, 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 very tricky.